Where to begin? Okay, hello everybody, JR Reviews here, and welcome to the Tsuranga Conundrum by Chris Chibnall, or the Tangerine Conundrum as I've been calling it all week, because we didn't know anything about this episode, and don't really think any of us were really looking forward to this episode. After last week's Arachnids in the UK, which, it was a very odd story, it just wasn't that great. Doctor Who never has an excuse to be boring, and I think that episode really kind of tested the viewer in terms of that. So I think loads of us were dreading this. The photos didn't look great because they didn't show anything. There was no sign of even the monster or anything. It was just very plain white walls, almost very Warriors of the Deep kind of thing. So it was very concerning. But this episode has really divided people because some of us loved it and some of us hated it. What did I think? Well, first, let's get into the casting. So we have everybody, normal gang, Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, Graham, played by Bradley Walsh, Yasmin Khan, played by Mandip Gill, and Ryan, played by Tosin Cole. And also guest stars, we have Ben Bailey-Smith, aka Doc Brown. I'm going to call him Doc Brown throughout this because that's how I know him as, because I've liked Doc Brown for quite a few years, and he is as Dirkus Cicero, an engineer and brother to Susan Packer's character of Eve Cicero, who's this esteemed general type character. We have Malby, who's a medic, played by Lois. I really don't know how to pronounce the last name, so I'm not going to bother, but she is sort of the main medic in the story. And Brett Goldstein plays Astos, who's pretty much the first medic we're introduced to who knows what he's doing. Jack Shalhoub as Yoss, who is a pregnant guy, an alien who has been pregnant for a week and is due. And David Shields as Ronan, an android and server to Eve Cicero. Okay, so first of all, do you know what? I really loved this story. This was such a breath of fresh air. It was absolutely mental. This episode started off at 11 and it never stopped. It just continued to just hammer down a new problem after the next. It was mental. Okay, so the episode starts off with this interesting predicament because I really liked the Doctor and the gang because they're all friends now. They're really used to each other, and they are exploring on this junk planet because the Doctor's looking for some stuff. And with metal texting them in there for hours, and I really enjoyed the banter, especially between the Doctor and Graham, because it really feels like Jodie was in her stride in this episode. Like there was that bit when, who took you to the yada 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 of so and so, and it was that kind of really cocky assholeness that sometimes the Doctor can be, and I really loved it. It was very much like Eccleston. I was watching Aliens of London a couple days ago, and Eccleston, that's his prime assholeness, which is fantastic. So I really felt like Jodie was continuing the character there, and very well, I must say. She continues to surprise me every week, and she's just absolutely great. The gang, I felt like Yaz and Ryan were really forgotten for the first act, because I'm pretty sure that in a few of the running shots, Yaz isn't even there, and it's just more like she just appears, and so that was very, very weird, and I didn't quite get that. By the way, I do apologise for background noise. The reason this video wasn't up yesterday, internet was down in uni, and tonight's bonfire night, so this is the only night I can record, so yeah, this is the reason why it's a day late. So, I think it really was a bit unfair for Yaz and Ryan to kind of get a little bit forgotten, and I watched this in a group of people, and I really think this episode is best in a group of people, because we had a laugh with this. And we even pointed out, where's Yaz and Ryan? Especially Yaz gets forgotten about. We do get some more stuff with Ryan's character in the story, which I really do like. We actually found out what happened to his mum. It's episode 5, halfway through the series. I think it's ample time for us to find out. And it was very heartbreaking, very real-world death of his mother having just a surprise heart attack. and it was really, really sad. And I really think Tosin Cole played it tremendously well. Ryan is my favourite of the lot. I just feel he's the one who's most developed in a sense. So I really enjoyed that a bit, and I really like how Yaz was kind of taking over that motherly role. That I really feel like that's her kind of role in the team. You know, as I was saying before, it's like Ryan is the innovative one. We've got Graham as sort of the stern one, but he comes up with these crazy ideas. Yaz is the one who kind of looks after everybody, and the Doctor's obviously the leader of the team. And I really love that everybody has something to do in this team. So it's a complete breath of fresh air for all the companions to actually have a role. So Yaz, of course, gets more stuff to do, of course, later in the episode when she has to defend the dark matter generator. So that was quite good, but it's just that first act we didn't really get that much of the TARDIS team. But we did get the problem introduced very quickly in that kind of very menacing shot of just this sphere pummeling towards the ship of the Tsuranga. And everything just starts going to hell, and it really seems like somebody is tactically taking apart and dismantling this ship so nobody can escape. And I thought that was great. And do you know what? This story could have set up a fantastic Sontaran story. This lone Sontaran that's maybe a bit of a renegade comes across a medical ship, and it's almost a little bit like Shakedown. So maybe that's why I was like, I even turned to someone and went, this would be a great Sontaran story. But the villain we did get, fucking Pting. Jesus Christ. This was, in terms of concept, the space pig on acid. It was so weird, but it was fantastic. Like, I was kind of disappointed that it was kind of this, like, Stitch looking cute creature. Oh, and it could have been like this menacing warrior, but it really got a charm to the episode, and it brought something new to the table. And I just think Pting is just the funniest thing of this entire series. Like, it just seems like there is a funny thing in each episode, and they honestly just keep getting better and better. And Pting, I think we've peaked. I think we've peaked, and we are never going to feel alive after this, because Pting, like, when Yaz boots him, I was in tears. Like, just in the reveal, everyone in my group were in constant tears for about 5 minutes afterwards, and just whenever Pting would show up, it was absolutely insane. And just this small little thing, and with a tail, it was the weirdest thing, and it just eats anything, and it was fantastic. And it's that weird monster that knows it's weird. It's like this episode was an entire parody on Doctor Who, and I loved it. It was a take on the classic Based Under Siege, and with Based Under Siege with me, it can be either one of the best Doctor Who stories ever, like the Moon Base, or it can just not be done very well, i.e. Kill the Moon. So Based Under Siege with me, and even with the classic series, you know, I don't always think they properly get it down. But so with me and Based Under Siege, it needs to be great. And do you know what? I really think this was super enjoyable. Like, it's not the best episode ever in terms of concept. This is like the Space Museum or like the Chase. Like, it's like in overall concept, it's just crap, but. And you know what? It's not really crap. It's just good. It's just silly, but it's so enjoyable. You can't help but just love it. It's like whatever rating I give this, which you'll find out. You know, it's not about like the quality of it. It's just, it's reflecting the quality of it. But I just had such a good time, so the rating doesn't even matter, because this is an episode I can't wait to rewatch when the Blu-ray comes out. I'm trying to maybe not rewatch these episodes during the week. So with the Tsuranga Conundrum, it was just this mental acid trip of a story, and it seemed like nobody knew how to grasp it, because this thing was insane. Chris Chibnall, I really feel this is what he should have written for last week's. Do you know what? This episode should have been last week's episode, I feel. Or maybe this episode wouldn't have gone down that well with me if it was broadcast after Rosa. Who knows? But I think in terms of the tone of the story, this is definitely what should have been last week's story. Like last week's episode was trying to be a fun story but also scary, and it just didn't work. So it should have gone a completely fun route. And last week's I just didn't really think worked, but this week worked completely well for me. The likeable characters as well. Astos I thought was great even from the start. I really loved the idea of the Doctor not being in charge as soon as they arrived, and Jodie sold off being injured very well. You know, the idea of just this injured Doctor who's not very mobile. I really liked that, and they thought they really did use that well. It would have been interesting maybe she was if maybe it hadn't weared off as quickly, because she was kind of fine a little bit halfway through. What I really did like that, and the Doctor just being wrong and knowing that they're being selfish. And I think the Doctor, as always, needed those moments. You know, I feel like some Doctors maybe didn't have enough of those moments. So it really felt like this realistic scenario, and I really enjoyed that. And Astos was understanding. He was great. Malby, I thought she was really sweet. She didn't believe in herself, and she really kind of goes to this character progression. She delivers like this baby while the ship's getting absolutely torn apart. I really enjoyed that. Ronan was an android, and I didn't really pick up on it until somebody actually said he was an android in my group. But Ronan I thought was really charming towards the end as well. I didn't quite really get what they were going with him, but I really enjoyed him as well. Yos as well. I thought he was a fine character as well. I really liked the way it kind of intertwined with Ryan's dad, and that speech about, well, not really speech, that sort of dialogue about what happened to Ryan's dad, and just like why he's not been around. And it was kind of that nice little contrast for Ryan. It was kind of like a little journey for him. And I really feel he's getting the most developed out of this series. And it seems next week, maybe, hopefully, finally, it's Shaz's turn, because last week really should have been her story. It was in a story sense, but in terms of just like progression sense, it just wasn't. So the Tsuranga Conundrum, I think, is kind of my shortest review of the series so far, and it's really just because I don't really have much to criticise about. It's just a fun story that you can just sit down and watch, and I really think that's what we needed. It was fantastic to watch this in a group of friends, and it's genuinely one of the most fun stories I've watched in Doctor Who in a long time. I thought it was great, and Chris Chibnall, I really feel he has more to offer. This kind of parody story, again, it last week should have been the same tone, but unfortunately it wasn't. So I was maybe thinking this series was getting a little bit formulaic, but now I think it's kind of back on top form. I'm really looking forward to next week. Next week is Demons of the Punjab, and that's going to be kind of Yaz's story. So it seems it's going to be like some supernatural, maybe alien element while she's meeting her grandmother in, was it the 1940s? They said 1914. I'm not too sure, but I'm really looking forward to that. So overall, the Tsuranga Conundrum, I give a 7 out of 10. That's just in terms of like maybe Eve was a little bit kind of shoved in. Like, I really did like her, and I really liked her being like this general character. But maybe the pilot's heart maybe just wasn't explained a little bit too much. The episode was very talky as well. I noticed people couldn't really keep up with it. I thought it was fine, but I think sometimes the series does go a little bit too educational, in fact, like with the dark matter scene. So it's a 7 out of 10, but it's like how the Space Museum is a 6.5 out of 10, but the Space Museum is just this fun story that's just absolute banter all the way through, because it's just so bullshit. And I feel this is just, it's Tsuranga Conundrum, easy telly, fantastic, and it's a really good 7 out of 10, and I feel it's just what we needed. As I've said before in these podcast reviews, I didn't want Series 11 to be like a few great episodes, a bunch of average ones, and quite a few bad ones. I just wanted a consistently good series. Something that maybe Series 10 wasn't. Series 10, I really feel it fits into that, a few great ones, a lot of average ones, some bad ones. While this one, I think we are getting a consistently good series, and that's just what I want. I just want good telly. And this episode was just banter. And I feel that Doctor Who can be banter, and should be banter sometimes, This was the Love and Monsters of this series. I love Love and Monsters, And And it was just charming. Pting, give me a plush. Get a plush of him, character options, like, right now. I want a Pting, and I want, like, a Pting, like, figure to go with the new Jodie that's being kind of leaked / revealed. Yeah. I don't really know what more to talk about this episode. It was just really fun, and I really enjoyed it. A 7 out of 10. So I hope you all have a great week, and Let's Hope Demons of the Punjab is going to be a good story, and hopefully it keeps up the oomph that Series 11 has been getting for quite a few of us. So once again, have a great week, and I will see you next week, reviewing Demons of the Punjab. See you later. Bye.